Good morning, everyone. We're having another session of Who's Who in the Zoo. And this morning I am talking to a longtime friend of mine, David Green, who currently works with Integral Group based in Canada. We are going to be talking about commissioning agents and, if you like, the commissioning process. David, welcome to the show.
Rob, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Good morning to everyone and good afternoon to anyone that is listening in North America.
I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself. And I don't want you to be shy, David. That's a common trait with yourself. At the same time, if you start telling me you've cured cancer, I'm going to also pull you up on that. Why don't you tell us how did you get into this role and what attracts you to it?
Sure. When I was 18, which was many, many, many years ago when I had a lot more hair, my dad told me, right, we need to go and get you a job. And I said, yeah, but Dad, I want to be a footballer or I want to be a rock star. No, can't do that. Go have a proper job. Okay, so he drags me to the library. Right, what do you want to do? I told you, I want to be a footballer. I want to be a rock star. No, go have a proper job. Oh, quite like that stuff you do. What stuff? You know, that sort of wandering around the site, engineering stuff. Oh, okay. So fortunately, he made me become, I carried out a 5-year apprenticeship, engineering apprenticeship, the old engineering apprenticeship in the UK, mid-80s. And it was a fascinating time for me because at the end of the day, we got to do everything. So I worked for a very large contractor, got to do pipe fitting, got to do some really cool stuff on site, got to see project management, did some design. When I left my apprenticeship, I actually went and worked for some design companies because I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then I'd say 25, 26 years ago, I fell into a job with another contractor who said, we want you to come and look after the BMS, BAS and commissioning. And I have to say, my apprenticeship, I'd always enjoyed that commissioning stuff. You know, bringing stuff to life was really interesting to me. If you asked me to coordinate ductwork, pipework, it's never going to end well. But if you told me to go and fix something, I quite like this, and I'd go and fix something. I'm sure there's some disastrous buildings in London where the ductwork, pipework doesn't fit properly. So,
but fixing problems is really a big thing that you enjoyed. Yeah. And all right. So what role do you have in your current position?
So in my current position, I am the senior principal for building performance for all the Integral Group offices. So it's 17 offices around the world. And I look after the commissioning service in all of those offices. And it's cool. So we've got offices in Australia, we've got Canada, America, UK, Serbia. And it's fascinating. Because at the end of the day, I'm a people person. I like looking after and talking to people more than anything, as well as fixing stuff. And I've been doing this game for a long time. So I've got a lot of experience, contracting experience, design experience, commissioning management experience, that I've realised that I need to pass down before I get too old and retire. So 9 years left, so I'm going to pass down everything I know.
It's not that you're counting that there's 9 years left.
No.
272 days and 76 hours or minutes. David, that's a great introduction. I do want to ask you a couple of other questions around commissioning, simply for the benefit of our listeners. There may be some listeners who are actually still a little bit unclear about commissioning. So just in, I guess, the world's simplest definition, can we start with what is commissioning?
Commissioning, actually, in every market I've ever worked, which is a lot, it means something different. In the UK, it means something different to here in North America to Australia. But in reality, whilst the definitions are slightly different, it really is all the same process. It's a QA, QC process to verify that the systems operate as per the owner's requirements and the documents.
So we're saying basically when you manage commissioning, you're managing the verification process or the quality assurance process that the building owner has got what he paid for. Is that it?
You got it, okay. Exactly. So that comes in a number of different tubes. If we were looking at toothpaste, you can do different things with it, but ultimately it is about testing that the systems operate properly. And really, I'm about outcomes. I'm about that horrendous gap that exists in building performance between design and actual. I'm about closing that gap, making that gap much better through proper testing, proper verification, proper inspection of the installation, and proper review of the design. It is a very powerful process to improve the handover of a building, if we're truthfully honest. And most times, it is misunderstood.
I think too, perhaps something that is close to this but not quite on song that we haven't mentioned yet is commissioning is basically a way of the owner is not just sure that he's got what he's paid for, but he gets to hear all of the nuances of the building. So this fan's a bit noisy. This pump over here is a little bit light on juice. He gets to hear or she, I don't mean to attach a gender there, but he or she gets to, I guess, understand some of the nuances of their building.
I see. If I use a very British term, they get to see warts and all. They get to see everything. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And that's really important because the owner is ultimately responsible for accepting the building, if we're truthfully honest. Too often engineers sign it off and think, oh, well, the engineer's responsible. Yeah, he is to a point, but it's the owner who accepts that it's operating. So if you tell them that it's right or wrong, or if it's wrong, why is it wrong, they're actually a bit better informed and can make more informed judgment and decisions on what to do. Too often people don't get it, though. They think I have some magic wand that I wave to fix stuff, and that's not true.
Yeah. So also just to close out this definition of commissioning, I think we should add, for the sake of listeners, that we're talking about air conditioning systems,
yes,
lighting systems. We're talking about ventilation systems. Help me out, Dave. I've only just done 3 there. What other systems are we talking about?
Security, life safety, integrated life safety system testing of the security of the life safety, fire alarm, generator, smoke extract, staircase pressurization. We should do a test on that, in my eyes. There's the security system, so cameras, access control. There's a lot of other systems involved in building operation these days. Buildings are complex, if we're truthfully honest. Gone are the days when we just used to put a fan and some ductwork. Then the building there is a system, especially with radiant heating, cooling slabs, and a lot of the technology in photovoltaics in the glass, and they're super complicated. And I don't believe we can ask one person to understand all of that. That's why I have a team of people who are experts in everything. And we put that together. Mechanical, electrical, fire protection, controls. It's really powerful.
And so, David, I think too, in this role that we're talking about, you're quite independent. You don't belong to the contractor of one sort or another. You're really almost a sort of a standing back, a person who's a bit independent.
It depends who pays the money, if we're truthfully honest. So it depends who I work for, So
who's hired?
Yeah, who I'm hired by, who's going to pay the bill. So ultimately, I want to work for the owner, the developer, because I guarantee getting paid, which is good, useful, because it's always useful to keep lights on in my house. B, get maximum influence over decisions. I have maximum influence over the decision with the developer. If I work, and that's a different role, and in that role, I am verifying the contractor's works. If I'm working for the contractor, it's a completely different way of thinking. I'm actually managing his work and doing all the interfaces with the other trades compared to working with the owner. Difference is quite stark in A, how much money you get paid, B, the pressure and stress of working with a contractor is quite immense, and that can be quite stressful for people. But it's really the same process, but from different ends of the spectrum.
Different perspectives. Yeah. Gotcha. All right, Dave. Now, you told your dad that you're just going to swan around on construction sites all day on a day-to-day basis. What actually do you do on a day-to-day basis? What do you do? And then I want to circle back to what does a commissioning agent do or ought to do on a day-to-day?
My role isn't hands-on commissioning as it used to be, say, 20-odd years ago. I'm a lot more involved in strategic thinking, in creating opportunity for the team, in driving a vision of where we're going to go, and creating new work, finding work. it's sometimes a really challenging market to find work because it's commoditised, it's competitive, and there's a lack of understanding. So I sort of lead the team from that perspective. Meanwhile, when I win that work, that team of people I have out there, they actually do it. So what does that mean? They produce plans, they produce specification sections, they do design reviews. We use a piece of software to create our construction checklists, our functional testing scripts. We manage our process using that software. And we still, unfortunately, also have to manage with a few spreadsheets. I'm not a great lover of spreadsheets because I think they're a bit old hat, but the software does have a limitation with the way it manages some of it. But it's brilliant for efficiency and also transparency, because we invite everyone to the software and they can see what's going on from the point of view of managing that process. So equipment deliveries, for example, we can see what's on site, what isn't on site, what's powered up, what isn't powered up. So it's very powerful. So out in the field they're doing reviews in the office, and then ultimately construction starts. So they go out, they do some inspections, they sit in meetings. I normally have my biggest complaint when they come back telling me, oh, yeah, we sat in the meeting, Dave, and, XYZ told me that they can't install the grills on the third floor. And I'm like, guys, we don't do contractors commissioning work. We're working for the owner. We shouldn't be having that discussion. Yeah, but if we don't do that, Dave, nobody's going to have that discussion and nothing will get done. So we're going to do it anyway. Ignore you completely. Oh, okay. And they're right, really. It's a talking.
They're being helpful.
Yeah, they're being helpful, but really we're not paid to do that. We're paid to look after the client's best interests, in essence, the owner's best interests. But they're right. There's too often the trades don't have an internal meeting to discuss items that affect commissioning. The trouble is those meetings end up to be a discussion about construction, because if we're truthfully honest, most of the items that affect commissioning are things that are not installed. So when I actually do some meetings, and when I go to, I've been to a project of mine where I've done 36 meetings, and in 36 of them, we've discussed construction issues and nothing to do with commissioning. So you see, it does work.
David, the next question I've got here is, in your view, in your opinion, how does the commissioning agent add the most value to a project?
The most value, in my eyes, is added when we review things on paper. So our drawing reviews, our submittal reviews, on paper, finding issues, identifying possible operational issues is the biggest bang for the buck. If we're standing in front of a panel out there on the field and it doesn't work, then I failed. We did not do our job properly. But in the case of review work, I think the biggest bang for your buck is review work on paper. Find it on paper, head off those issues, backstop any design problems. And at the end of the day, why do problems occur? Because we're human. We all make errors. We all make assumptions. If we were computers, we wouldn't have that problem, but we're not. We're human beings and we make errors. And people forget sometimes that errors occur. So I'm a great believer in fixing stuff on paper. Next value-added point, I suspect, would be our management of our process, management of our management works. Those meetings that I get annoyed about, they're really a good value point because people talk. If we talk, we actually get somewhere. We give them a vehicle to talk. And finally, I suppose the next value point is the functional testing we do. We're very diligent in what we do and very clear in what we expect from the construction team, the contractors.
Right.
If we can get all those ducks in a line, we've got a perfect project and we can hand over something that's going to work optimally from day one. But most times there's something comes along, there's a curveball comes at us, there's a shot that comes in that we can't save for whatever reason. We're only human as well. But I'd say paper, fixing stuff on paper. If I'm standing, well, that means employing us at the right time. So if we're not employed early enough to do that job and to find that stuff on paper, then all I'm doing is walking around and being just another engineer doing an inspection. It doesn't add any value at that point.
So yeah, there's been a couple of jobs where I think we've done our drawing review without drawings. We're literally walking around on site seeing things for the first time. It's never popular with our builder when we say, on your drawing here, this fan coil you've installed, you're going to need to pull it down and do it again. All right, well that's good. Now is a more personal question. Could you give us an example of a really good day at the office, or if that's like there's too many to pick from, perhaps you could give us an example of a bad day at the office?
I'll give you an example of a really good day. A really good day in the office is I've had a client on the phone and we've been awarded a major big job, lot of big fee, and I feel good, and everyone in the team feels good, and we're all ready to go. Really bad day is I get a call that we're not going to get the big job, we're not going to get the big fee. We've got to keep struggling along with those tiny little fees somewhere or other making ends meet.
Right. I think I'm going to blow the whistle a bit on you there, Dave. That's what you do as a manager. As a commissioning agent, what's a good day in the office look like?
So
what does your crew think of it?
Let's think about this. So a good day would be we've gone to a site, we've tested something, it works perfectly, there's no issue, everyone's happy, the client's happy, the contractor's happy, we've not been, upsetting anyone, which we shouldn't anyway. We leave the site in a very positive mood. And that leads to more work, if we're truthfully honest. Good relationships, good work leads to more work. And a bad day would be the complete opposite. Everything's failed. Everyone's upset. There's a lot of shouting going on. There's a lot of angst, and people are upset. And
and the blame game has started. Yeah,
fingers start pointing, isn't it? It's your fault. It's you, and there's a number of things there. It's interesting to see. So I'll give you a story, a little story.
Mm.
So we went to a project. This is a few years ago, and there was a sump. We were in to do the sump pump. Very simple, a pump in a hole in the ground with a pipe coming in.
Yeah.
Really can't get this one wrong. So the guys come back and they said, Dave, look at this. Oh yeah, there's a panel. It's a changeover panel, 2 pumps in the sump. Yeah, that's what we thought. And we opened up the sump and look, there's only 1 pump in there. Like, how does this work then? Why is there 2 starters and 1 pump? Well, we did ask that question. The contractor got quite upset because there was an error in ordering. He orders 1 pump, so they adapt the control panel to change over 1 pump. So way to go, guys. Because we pointed it out, he gets upset. But I've spent money on this. We should have just bought the right pump in the first place, apparently was the comment. And that's a bad day. They come back. We've got to go back and do it all again. So, I've got bad days. I've got to do retesting and revisits. And they've upset everyone because they've told the guy, look, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have done this. You should have bought the right equipment in the first place. So
Dave,
right.
I wanted to ask the question then, Dave. What happens on a project when you're engaged too late? What happens? How does the commissioning agent's role change? Or does he simply say, this is where we are, I'm going to be functioning as if we're back at schematic design? I can imagine there's a certain lack of practicality there because they're pouring concrete and they're doing stuff.
Well, we've actually been asked to go to places where they've got all the ductwork installed and half the fans running. Can you come along and verify something? Yeah, because we can. But you're not getting value for money, if we're truthfully honest. I am at that point just ticking boxes and trying to recover all of that pre-design work, then reviews, then plans, then specs. And a lot of the time the spec won't have even mentioned the word commissioning. And if it does, it'll mention it really badly. So the contractor thinks that I do come along and fix stuff, which I don't. And it'll just be a mess. It's just a waste of the client's money. The biggest bang is employing us early. Get us in early, get us on paper, get us first people on the job, really, on the project. If I'm standing there, walking around inspecting the installation, then I might as well just be the engineer at that point because I'm just doing his job as well. There's no value to it. It's hard to actually step into a project where they've installed half the equipment as well because we've got no influence over any quality issue, over anything. And it becomes, it's just not right. It's just a bit pointless.
Yeah. Okay. So David, the vast majority of the times, I'm believing or I'm imagining that you're employed by the owner of the facility or perhaps the developer of the facility,
Yep, that's correct.
and they want to believe that they've got what they've paid for. Sometimes you're engaged though by a builder, and he's forgotten about you, or he thinks he gets the same service for a lower fee if he engages you late.
That's right.
Uh,
There's
yeah.
some owners, developers that have engaged us late because they screwed up, but that's another different discussion. If
Yeah.
you employ us too late, we can't do our job. We can't find things on paper. We can't identify issues on review. We can't influence the quality of the installation by pointing out to the construction team, look, guys, you could have put on VAVs, you need X diameter before them, and on balancing valves, you need X diameter before and after them. We can't make any judgment calls on any of the engineering. It's just a fait accompli at that point. We're done, aren't we? I think that's wrong. I don't actually like doing that. A lot of times, if my phone goes and it's somebody saying, "Oh, I've got this job and we're handing it over tomorrow. Can you come down and test it?" No, pointless.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
a pointless game at that point. I don't like doing that.
So, Dave,
Go
one
on.
of the other things I wanted to just touch base with you is in commissioning, there seems to be just an amazing number of different commissioning bodies. So we have NEBB, the National Environmental Bureau Balancing. We have ASHRAE's got its own commissioning processes. CIBSI's got its own commissioning processes. CIBSI then goes a step further and starts borrowing from BISRIA. Some of the Australians go and borrow from an organisation called ERA within Australia. It must be bewildering to be confronted with this array of standards. Is it your job or somebody else's job to go and pick the standard, the groups of standards that we're going to comply to?
Well, sometimes a lot of the time it's already done for us. The owner will say, I want commissioning done to ASHRAE, or I want the air handling unit commissioned to ASHRAE, which is a bit difficult because ASHRAE is a process of documents and deliverables and phases. CIBSI's an event. We can you can commission an air handling unit under CIBSI because people understand the steps. It's confusing, if I'm honest with you. I've got two of those qualifications myself. I have an ASHRAE Building Commissioning Professional certification, and I've got a Certified Commissioning Professional from the Building Commissioning Association. So North America, actually, I think it's something like 13 or 14 different bodies who can certify for commissioning. So it gets more complicated.
Wow.
And NEB, obviously, is a North American body in the first place. NEB has its own building commissioning professionals and TAB professionals. It's all great stuff, and I think it's really important that people have been and learned a little bit about it, but it doesn't mean that you know anything about it, because ultimately it's a knowledge, skills and experience game. I've been doing it since I was 18, and this year will be my 39th year of starting.
Right.
So I've seen a lot of stuff, and I know how to do the job. So getting a certificate doesn't mean I can do it. It just means that I can pass an exam, doesn't it, at the end of the day? It doesn't mean I'm able to do it. So there's a little issue I have sometimes with those certificates. I think that they can be very misleading. And I know I should know this because I actually sit on the ASHRAE committee that writes Guideline Zero, the Commissioning Standards Committee, and I actually assist CIBSI in the big rewrite that's currently going on with Code M. So I think it's important to understand that there are two different models of commissioning, though. And that's,
Okay.
We should we clean that up properly? I mean, we should have a worldwide body and we should just have one definition, and that would make my life really simple, if I'm truthfully honest with you. It would be much easier. It gets worse, though, because people use the wrong years for standards. They use, an old one, and it's like crazy. You can't even get the year right, let alone the standard. So
Right.
it's frustrating.
So as a society, and I'm talking very generally here, I know there are obviously differences between Canada, the UK, the US, Australia, etc., and Southeast Asia and China and India. They've all got their own nuanced societies in the construction industry. But as a general group of societies, we're facing some big challenges at the moment.
Yeah.
Climate change, the climate adaptation, which I'm going to separate as not climate change. But then there's also, I guess, been a lot of focus on things like on mold, and then more recently, as in the last few years, on virus transmission.
Yep.
These big challenges, what have they meant for commissioning and the commissioning agency role?
It's interesting. The world of COVID hasn't really come and affected me yet to a point. 2 years ago, it was all, gadgetry. Let's put an XYZ in the system and it's going to kill all the bacteria or the bugs or whatever. And I'm never a great lover of bacteria. I think the biggest change we're going to see, and we're seeing it already, is more outdoor air, bringing more outdoor air into buildings. The impediment to that is you live in a cooling dominant climate where the air's hot, and I live in a heating dominant climate where a lot of the time it's cold. And the penalty for that is you're going to pay more to heat and cool that air. So, yeah, it's one thing to put more outdoor air in it, but the consequences of that are sometimes interesting, depending on where you live. The mould thing, see, that probably falls back to we should construct things better discussion. Ultimately, a lot of that is down to construction, or when I think about it, it's probably also down to poor construction practice with regards to letting water go everywhere when it shouldn't be. Uncontrolled discharges of water and they're not clearing it out properly, not understanding it, trying to hide things with paint and ignoring it, the old, blinkers, we're just ignoring it, get the job done. We all have a responsibility, I believe, to each other as well, especially in the construction process. Construction is difficult. Let's face it. We reinvent the wheel on every project, Every project is different, as it has a different set of challenges. And we don't seem to even share and learn from a lot of those challenges either. As an industry, I don't believe we share lessons learned, things that we could improve, things that we could do differently. Where did it work? Where did it go wrong? We don't understand success. We don't understand. We're great at smacking ourselves on the head and saying we've not done a great job or we're late. But we don't really do a good job of saying that we've done a fantastic job here. Let's celebrate that success, because we've got no metrics for that. We're only used to beating ourselves up. So, yeah, I know construction's challenging, but it's rewarding. But I think we should maybe do something about that whole worldwide thing.
So I think there's a couple of issues there, though, Dave. Sharing lessons learned, I absolutely agree that nothing moves the needle forward for the collective average than being transparent about what went wrong in a project. But the flip side of that is, there's not much in it for the person sharing it. There's potentially a risk of litigation. There's an acknowledgement that I've failed at some point. It's very difficult, I think, to share those lessons without tripping over those little places. Have you got any ideas on how sharing lessons can be done without triggering litigation / damage to reputation?
It shouldn't be a name and shame campaign. It should be a sharing. We should share. We should sit and share and learn. And we're not pointing fingers. You screwed up. You did this. You did that. This is about, look, what worked for us, what didn't work. How could we have done things better? How could we have improved stuff? How could we improve our process? We only improve as human beings if somebody tells me. So I've spent, 7 years trying to improve the processes here, and it's slowly we're getting there. But we only improve because we realise we screwed up on a job, and we sit around the table and go, oh, we screwed that up. We need to change this. And I know where you're going with the liability. I get all of that. But we don't learn unless we talk to each other. And I think it's super, super important. As I said way back at the beginning here, I don't have a magic wand to come around, shake it and fix everyone's issues. I'm not Harry Potter,
So I've led into this question a bit and sort of taken all the easy answers away from you about what are your biggest challenges at the moment. Can you answer the question with the challenges that we haven't touched on? What are the big challenges that we haven't touched on yet?
challenges to me are, one, lack of knowledge and understanding in the industry compared to maybe when I came into it. It's different. There's a lot of very clever people, but it's not practical anymore. We're a practical industry. I'm applied engineering, I'm not design. Crikey, you wouldn't want me to design anything, it wouldn't end well. I think that's a real challenge around the world. And I know getting the right people, getting the right resources, getting well-trained people and actually being able to get them to work effectively and to work on things that are useful. At the end of the day, we're complex, Rob. Buildings are super complex today, aren't they? We've got a lot of different systems. The building is a system. And the challenge is, one, we don't have the right people doing it or the right experience to do it. We end up with a poor outcome. And I think outcomes are poor for clients a lot of the time. They don't necessarily get what they want, but sometimes that's because they didn't actually know what they want. I want a building really isn't very useful direction. The other challenge I think we face is, obviously climate is a problem, utilities, fossil fuels, use of modern technology is some major challenges for us around the world. But ultimately, we still hand over buildings with numerous deficiencies and defects, and I still find it fascinating that people accept it. If I went to buy a car tomorrow morning and the guy came to me and said, "All right, Mr. Green, there's a piece of paper with 30 things wrong with it," I wouldn't accept that car, would I? I'd be insane to put my life at risk. But somewhere today, somewhere in the world, someone's handed over a humongous expensive building with loads of defects in it. I think that's a challenge.
$100 million car.
Yeah.
Pages and pages.
The car's a clever building. It's got windows, it's got doors, it's got air conditioning, it's got a motor, and it's got wheels, and it drives along, and it's really efficient, actually, if we're truthfully honest. And meanwhile, we can't get a building handed over that doesn't work properly. I find that really fascinating and annoying and frustrating and challenging.
Yeah.
The challenge is to us is things are getting more and more complicated, and sometimes complicated doesn't mean better.
No, I think often complicated doesn't mean better, David. So, David, another question for you is: we see in Australia a significant transition to design and construct delivery methodology. My humble experience in North America was still a lot more of tender, much more of a traditional process. Between those two different models, are there any unique things that a commissioning agent should be sort of looking for?
So the design bid build is an interesting one here. Canada's different to the States, different to the UK. Not letting people buy. So in the UK, I'll give you the example from a UK job that I work on, where the design is done by the consultant, taken to what would be, design development. Then the contractor takes it to construction documents. But they purchase slightly different equipment to what the designer selected in the first place. And then the impediment and the challenge then is that equipment doesn't operate like the way the designer imagined. So you've got to be really aware of the equipment that's been selected by the construction team, what impact will that have upon the whole process, the whole operation of that building. Ultimately, people want to feel cool or hot or nice and comfortable. And if we put in equipment that's not quite right, they won't feel like that, and it'll be the normal, this is all construction's fault, it doesn't work properly. So I think we should be aware of what equipment we're putting in. We should be careful with the sizes, the flow rates, the airflow rates. We should count back a lot of the time when things get changed. It doesn't happen anymore like it used to years ago. I sit in my office sometimes and I sketch out a little schematic and I write down flow rates, and then I'm horrified as to how different they are compared to the design. So the actually purchased equipment is completely different to the design. And that to me is, we should be a bit more diligent in our understanding as commissioning people. I'll tell you a funny story. So I did a very large building. It was a bit like a warehouse. So the guys went out to look at it, and they were gone for like about a week. And I'm like, where the heck are they? What the heck are they doing? So
was the building in the beach?
I don't know what they were doing. So they come back the week later, and I said, "What have you been doing, guys?" "Oh, we got a story for you." I'm like, "Oh no, here we go." So okay, tell me the story. So you know, Dave, that there's like 30 metres of straight duct in that building after each takeoff. Yeah. And there's a damper. Yeah, I know about that. And where would you drill the test holes? Well, drill it down a bit 30 metres straight, get a nice laminar flow, get a really good reading. Okay, where do you think they drilled the holes? I've got no idea. They drilled them as close to the damper on the inlet side as they could find. What? So we've had a bit of a problem. So we asked the guy, why did you drill the hole there? Well, can't drill it. Why didn't you drill it in the 30 metre straight? Well, I can't drill it in that 30 metre straight. Why not? Well, the reading will be different. What?
Correct. That's the idea. It will be accurate.
So, okay, Dave, calm down. I'm getting quite annoyed now. So we're now training people. Yeah, don't worry, Dave, we're going to fix this. So what was the outcome of this? So what we got into, we explained to him, look, if you actually put it in the straight duct, you'll get a much better reading. And guess what, Dave? The readings were different. I'm like, you've been gone for a week, right? You've been training people. We don't get paid to train people. We're not paid for this, right? Stop. And I said, anyway, by the way, it's lucky it wasn't water. Well, what do you mean? Because there'd be water all over the floor. If he's reading on one side of the valve different to the other, we've lost water. It must be all over the floor by this point. But, it's crazy. And that amazes me that we've got people out there balancing systems who don't really get it. And I was actually gobsmacked. But yeah, but the pitot tube apparently was as close to the damper as he could get it. And there's all this turbulence going on, this madness going on.
Right. Well, that's why you get a different answer. The final question for this session, David, is, and don't forget, the whole podcast is aimed at empathy. We want designers and builders who are coming together for construction meetings to really understand the role of a commissioning agent.
Yep.
Do you have any suggestions, any things you kind of wish they all knew before you all got together for, say, a commissioning workshop or a commissioning meeting? What are the pointers and suggestions for these teams?
Oh, Rob, that's a bit of a loaded question, really, isn't it?
That's loaded, all right. I didn't say this was easy. If this was easy, I've
done okay so far. And then on number 6, at the fence 6, I fall dramatically, yeah?
That's right.
I think all commissioning team members need to realise that to do our job is a huge amount of technical skill and management skill and knowledge, skills and experience. And if we actually point something out on our review, it's pointed out for a reason, not because we want to upset someone, not because this is about ego. It's actually about doing the right thing from a point of view of commissionability or operation or just plain good common practice. And normally the design team doesn't always want to listen because unfortunately ego kicks in and, no, we know better than them. What the hell do they know? Blah, blah, blah. I really don't care if you listen or not, but normally we pick something up for a reason. And it's worth having the discussion with us to see where we're coming from with regards to why that's the reason. So what I would say is the design team should listen to what we have to say because it's important. It isn't because I want everyone to write a huge list of issues, because it's actually about adding that value. So there was a job I did where I have an Australian works for me, actually, as it happens. So he's doing a review. He came to me, Dave, there's a problem here. Well, what's the matter? And we look at it. He said, look, you see this is a return VAV box. Yeah, it's drawn the wrong way around. Yeah, you're right. Better tell them. So we phone up the engineer. We say, look, we've looked at these drawings. And this VAV box on the return side is actually drawn like a supply box. Well, yeah. Oh, crikey, you're right. Thanks for that, guys. And he comes back to us. He says, lucky you picked that up. They were just about to install all of those boxes the wrong way round. And the client would have got a change notice for like $500,000 to change them all. And he obviously lost a lot of credibility. And that was really powerful to me. We find an issue. It's not about ego. It's about, well, hang on, someone's going to have to pay and do a load of rework here to fix something. Off the back of that, there was a very large company that we pointed to. He used to phone me and we used to get to do all sorts of really cool work with him because we helped him out. And I think it's important to remember. He wasn't he wasn't ego. He's like, well, let me have a look. Oh, crikey, guys, you're right. Stay there. I'll be back. And he's straight on the phone. Stop. We're going to reissue the drawing. and there's a lot of power to that. Listen to what we have to say, because I've got NEB certified balancers. I've got controls guys. I'm not the smartest man in the room anymore, like I used to be years ago. These guys are way smarter than me, but they're very, very good at what they do. But we have to tiptoe around, and we have to do, be aware of everyone's ego, and the ego sometimes gets in the way. So my advice to the design team member is sit with us, listen, because we're only questioning something. We're not actually fault finding it. We're not finding fault in the design. We're questioning everything we're told. Questioning mind is a great commissioning mind, and I think it's really important to listen, because that's that lessons learned thing. How do we improve? Well, we should have had a lessons learned that day, and the lesson learned would have been always put your VAV boxes on the return the right way round, because that way you're doing a huge change notice. And there's probably a number of different issues and stories that I can tell about things that we headed off because we looked at it on paper and then spoke with the design team, and then they listened. And there's other times we've pointed stuff out and it was ignored. And 6 months later, I've said, "Oh, wait a minute, didn't we write about this? And you ignored us." That really shouldn't happen. It should be a very collaborative process. We should all work together. We should try and fix the issues on paper before they become an issue in construction. Sometimes the client's the one who's losing out here. He's building a little bit late, or he'll think construction's ridiculous because everything's the wrong way round. Or I had another job. This is actually a really funny one. I sent a guy to some very remote place in Canada many years ago. So he phones me up, "Dave, I've got a problem." "Oh, no, it cost a fortune to send the guy there as well." "What's the problem?" "Well, we've been trying to work out why the airflow is a bit all over the place. And what we've realised is the drawings are in metric, and the BAS guy has actually set all things up in imperial." And I'm like, "You are joking." So we're like 50% less airflow. He goes, "Yeah, and it's been like this for weeks, apparently. The people in this building are really not happy." Well, not surprising, lesson learned. Keep the unit different, right? Make it the same. It's not rocket science at the end of the day. If it was rocket science, my dad wouldn't have made me do it, because he'd have made me do something else, right? I'd maybe been a famous footballer earning a lot of money. I'd take a pay cut. But, that units thing still amazes, does my head in. Keep consistent. When I go to the gas pump, I notice I buy my fuel in litres, and my car tells me the speed in kilometres an hour. So that tells me Canada's a metric country. So why are we doing everything in imperial? And that was that.
I hear. I think the funnier thing is, David, when you start to see people blending kilowatts per BTU per hour, that's the one where I go, I'm not. There's not enough scotch for me to cope with this. I'm in trouble here.
Well, when I used to work for a contractor and I used to be a project manager on site, and I used to write a requisition, and I've done it loads of times. "Please provide 10 number 3 metre lengths of half-inch pipe." Right? It's classic.
Right. Make sure it's 3 meters long and half-inch. All right.
But that unit thing is I've seen it, I don't know how many times ever since that day. But that was just class. It was VAVs. Every VAV he'd set up with imperial, because he thought the drawings were imperial. And
well, David, you have actually triggered one sort of bonus question, if I can call it that. We're dealing with big problems, as you know, around cost and energy and the different ways of construction, and that is an environment in which innovation, good innovation or bad innovation, will grow. How does the commissioning agent respond well and in a way that's best for project to innovative schemes?
So that's really my job, to be a visionary, to look at innovation. And I believe innovation really would make my life so much easier, I'm honest with you. So, for example, automated fault diagnostic and detection and diagnostic could become remote functional testing. I should be able to put a piece of equipment into a building from the point of view of construction and start testing it automatically from, in the construction process. We should build a whole library of information based upon what's going on in the early days. We can see what VAV is not set up, or is it set up in metric or imperial. I think technology actually makes my life a lot easier to a point, but nobody wants to, can't afford that, and yet a lot of that technology is we've got some really cool stuff at Integral Group. I'm going to do a little pitch now. We've got some pretty cool stuff. But when you look at it, the cost of it is like the coffee budget for the office, right? Oh, can't afford that.
You guys drink expensive coffee.
It's just crazy. You'll make your building better for the price of the coffee budget, but we can't afford that. Well,
yeah.
Why?
Yeah, no, that's right. The sense of business case goes missing, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the return on investment, it's going to take 2 years. Well, that's really good. Actually, it won't take 2 years. It'll take about 2 weeks, if we're truthfully honest. But, I think innovation is the way forward. But you're right. There is some really weird innovations as well that make no sense to me. I'm very old on some of this stuff. To a point, I'm not allowed to have apparently primary, secondary pumps anymore, and it's all got to be a bit slightly different. And I'm traditional. I don't like using the pump on the chiller or the boiler. To me, is a shunt pump. It's not the primary pump. It is a shunt pump to deal with the pressure through the chiller or the boiler. But now I've got manufacturers. Yeah, as is the primary pump. Well, how does it know what the secondary pump's doing? Well, that's the control system's problem. No, because you're telling me this is a package unit. So how does it actually know what's going on? So we've, innovated something that is pointless, one. A lot of the things we do as well, analytics makes a big difference. And I think analytics will change the way buildings work. That, we've seen it over the past few years coming into play. Because at the end of the day, a computer can sit there 24/7, 365. But anyone I send out there has got to come home, he's got to eat, he's got to sleep, he's got to be with his family, he's got to go on holiday. And by the law, I can only send him there for a certain period of time, whereas a computer can do it all the time. So I think that innovation in testing is really cool and a really great thing for me. A lot of those innovations just make me I can always hear my dad. He always used to say to me, what's in that building then? Oh, fan coils. Oh, we were doing fan coils 40, 50 years ago, So he's right. It's no different today. It's just a bit more complicated for no reason sometimes.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I think it's valid. The internal combustion engine stayed the same for about maybe 100 or 120 years, and then suddenly there's a Tesla running around and it's different again. So there could be in all of our industries some big shifts coming. So I'm curious about how commissioning agents are going to deal with new things when there may not be a SIBSI procedure for this weird.
So at the end of the day, you've got to keep abreast of new stuff in my eyes. You've got to continue professional development is super important in today's world. The smart building is going to become, the digital twin will become more and more important for us. We've got to stay with that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there'll still be issues with balancing. There'll still be issues with the controls. The contractor still won't have finished the job on time. He'll still be sanding the walls with the air systems running. There'll be the normal things that they don't get. And the technology won't save that and won't solve that. But maybe they'll invent a robot that can sand the walls before we turn the air systems on. And that'll be a general result, because that's half the challenge. It's still that implementation in construction that's a big problem. We can use all those analytics to find what doesn't work properly and efficiently, but I can't solve any of those problems of there's one pump in the sump and we've done all of this amazing work creating a control panel to change over one pump. Or the man with the balancing damper, I'm going to take that reading right next to the damper, and they will still exist. And I always think back, I remember 25 years ago, we're going to change a few things. Construction will become, way more efficient. 25 years later, we're actually worse. We're not actually any more efficient. We're less efficient. We've made no impact on anything, have we? Cars. I still say cars are super clever. They've got doors, windows, air conditioning, an engine, irrespective of how it works. You get in them, they start, and you drive off. Meanwhile, the buildings, we can't even get, it's a static thing. We can't even get it right, can we? We could learn a lot from the car industry.
Well, I think we might leave it on that note, David. That's been a terrific amount of time that you spent with us, and some wonderful insights. I'm not sure how my clients will feel about if I start promoting that they just get a better car, bigger car. Maybe that's in lieu of this hospital, but I think there's some great throwaway quotes there. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me, Rob. I'm really proud to have been here. So thank you very much.
You take care, David, and I hope to see you around on the traps and maybe have a cold one with you sometime.
That'll be cool. Thanks, Rob.
All the best.
Take care.
Bye-bye.